Hey CityCast DC, it's Mark Kulkowski. While CityCast DC works hard every day to connect you with the stories that matter most, I'm working in the background making sure that our listeners are connecting with the best the DMV has to offer. So what does that look like? It means meeting with the people who make the district what it is, the business owners, the stakeholders, the decision makers, the Washingtonians who put together those food festivals you enjoy, the concerts you attend, the exhibits you can't miss, and who make those candles your mom can't stop talking about. So if this sounds like you, let me help you get your message out to the best audience in town with an ad right here on the CityCast DC podcast and on our sister daily newsletter, Hey DC. Send me an email at ads@citycast.fm and let's connect.
Today on CityCast DC, my co-host Bridget and I got to sit down with Big Tony Fisher from the seminal DC go-go band Trouble Funk. He talked about growing up in DC, getting his start in the heyday of go-go, and what life was like for a musician back when go-go was treated with suspicion instead of being celebrated as DC's official music. Today is Thursday, May 25th. I'm Michael Schaefer, and here's what DC is talking about. All right, Bridget, I am so excited because today a bomb is going to drop on CityCast. Or I should say, the bomb is going to drop on CityCast. We have Big Tony here from Trouble Funk. So glad you're here.
You want to drop the bomb?
On the CityCast crew.
Yes, I love getting started with a nice Trouble Funk reference.
How y'all doing?
We're doing all right.
Oh, we're so excited to have you here, Big Tony.
It's a great pleasure to be here.
So tell us about you. Your go-go band is one of the best, I think you would probably say the best, go-go band there is. I've seen you guys since I was a kid. I watched you at the old 930 Club the night before I went away to college.
Yeah.
But I don't know anything about your background. Where'd you grow up? How'd you get into playing music?
Man, we're going to go that far back. I picked up my first guitar around the age of 11 years old.
Wow.
And I was playing professional by the time I turned 15. As a matter of fact, I was playing in places I shouldn't have been. I was playing in nightclubs at the age of 15. There was a club over here on Georgia Avenue called the Part 3 back in like 1975.
Mm-hmm.
And I used to play with this guy named Johnny Barnes. You know, I was always big for my age, so it's like they used to call me Big Youngin. You know, the Big Youngin, we're gonna take a break. Don't go over there by the bar.
What was that like being just a teenager in these places where you really shouldn't have been making music for presumably a bunch of adults?
It was a great experience. I mean, it was good money back then. I mean, even back then, I was like, that was a lot of money. I was making $75 a night, you know. So 1975, that was good money for me, you know, for a kid that grew up in the projects of Southeast, you know what I'm saying? So I was happy, you know.
Who first turned you on to playing instruments?
It's weird you ask that because I'm self-taught. The way I got into this is like really, really crazy. I'm working on a book, as a matter of fact. I've been working on it for quite a while, and it's called Big Tony in the World of Trouble. And it talks about my musical background from when I was 11 years old all the way up until, you know, recent. And I actually got my first guitar. I kind of like found it, you know, kind of, sort of.
He's using air quotes, everybody.
I can hear the air quotes in when you say "found it."
Yeah. So the truth is like someone had got evicted, and I didn't know what it was calling eviction back then. I just seen a whole lot of stuff out there on the side of the street and the sidewalk, and people was going through it picking it. So I seen the guitar. I got the guitar and decided to head on back down to the house. Because this is like somewhere like going towards Meridian Hill Park. There was a high-rise building. Long story short, the guy that got evicted was on his way up the hill. He said, "Hey, where you going with my guitar?" found it. He was pissed. He was mad. You know, I guess he had a good reason to be mad, but he was like, I can have you locked up. And I was a kid. I didn't know better. So then I'm scared now. I'm trying to hurry up and get back down the hill and go home. And he called me back. He said, come here. And I went back and he gave me the guitar. He said, here, the next time I see you, you better learn how to play this guitar. I'm taking it back.
That is amazing.
And I went home and I just started listening to everything that was musical. I turned on the TV, see if I could find music, and I'll just try to imitate everything that I hear. One day I was watching TV and I seen Johnny Cash doing some type of country show. It was a performance, and he was sitting on the stool playing the guitar, and he was playing "I Walk the Line," and they had the camera on his hands. And that's how I learned how to don't nigga don't. That's the first thing I learned how to play. Don't. I learned how to play that. That was the first thing I learned how to play on my guitar.
Why did that stick with you? What was it about that song?
I think it was something about the way they put the camera on his hands. It's like, it just came natural for me. It was like picking up that guitar was kind of like, it was like a connection. And I was doing things on the guitar back then that I didn't know what it was, but it was like, if I heard it, I could play it.
So what was going on in like DC in music in those days? Like the people you were hanging out with, what were people listening to? What were you listening to and being influenced by?
Well, I wasn't hanging out with nobody when I was 11 years old, but because technically it's like I grew up in Northwest, from like an infant on up to about 11. And from 11 on, we moved to Southeast. My mom's moved to the project. We got some kind of housing voucher or something like that. My mom, she was handicapped as a teenager. She was in a car accident that she had to have her leg amputated. And she raised all 6 of us.
Wow.
My dad wasn't in my life, in our life at the time. So, and we had a very strong mom. She was a very strong Black woman, and she worked for as long as she could. And that was one of the reasons why I started getting out trying to make money so early, because I was the oldest and I wanted to help her. So I just felt like I had, at that point, I had to be the man of the house. But getting back to the music thing, which she played a big part, by the way, because she saw a lot in me that I didn't see in myself. And she always told me that you're going to be special. She said, I love all my kids, but you're going to be the special one. You're going to be a star. And she instilled that thought in me. And it's like, I always dreamed real big. I used to tell my friends, like, friends that I went to school with, we'd be out there. When you're young, you see cars, come out, nice cars, that, yeah, that's going to be my car one day, and blah, blah, blah. And we would talk about things like what we're going to do when we get older. And like, I would tell them things like, one day I'm going to play at the Capitol Center, and they would like laugh at me, they would be laughing, cracking up,
Wait, did you ever play at the Capitol Center?
I not only played at the Capitol Center several times, we headlined the Capitol Center.
Nice.
You know what I'm saying? So.
And just for the record, eventually they dropped the bomb on the Capitol Center. They tore it down.
Absolutely.
Sorry,
yes.
I had to do that.
I'm glad you did. What would little Tony say to see Big Tony hit all these milestones that you used to dream about as a kid? Like, what do you think you would say to your younger self if your younger self could see you now?
Well, we did it. All the things that I dreamt about, I actually accomplished it, and I did so much more than I actually dreamed. I never actually dreamed of traveling the world. I never dreamed about. I couldn't even comprehend what it was to travel the world. back then, you know. And I've actually traveled the world. I mean, we performed everywhere: Japan, Germany,
Wow.
Amsterdam, Italy, Sweden, Spain. I mean, France. We've toured all over the world, you know. And to do this and don't have to pay to do it. No, actually, to do this and get paid to do it. That's like, come on now. I mean, you know, yeah. I have 3 gold records and 2 platinums. We're the most sampled group. Who would have thought? The most sampled group in hip hop history.
I was going to say, what are some of the favorite hip hop songs that have sampled your songs?
Some of my favorite hip hop songs. Um, I got to go. Number 1 on my list is Public Enemy, Fight the Power.
So they sampled you on that one.
Yes, yes. I think that's like one of the funkiest tunes of all time, man. And then Will Smith, the Millennium album, you know, he cut up there to Pump Me Up. So many people have sampled. Everybody and their mama didn't sample Pump Me Up. It's like that song has been, you know, artists like George Michael sampled us. Oh my God, Teddy Riley, the Beastie Boys, NWA, Snoop Dogg, Dr. Dre. Man, I say we've been sampled over 200 and almost 300 some times by major artists.
Can you take us back to so you're this kid who's got a found guitar and watched Johnny Cash play on TV, and this is like right at the beginning of go-go. You know, Chuck Brown is a thing, but a lot of the other bands haven't formed. Tell me how you got into go-go, how the band started, how the sound started.
Okay. It's a good one. I'm glad you asked that. I used to go see this group called Trouble Band and Show around 76, 77 down Anacostia Park. Trouble Band and Show was a top 40 R&B cabaret band. And there was a bass player by the name of Gerald. I forgot his last name. He lived in Burridge Farm, which was like not far from where I live. And I taught Gerald how to play bass guitar. Gerald wound up getting a gig with Trouble Band and Show. Fast forward, Gerald, he did something that pissed Rio off. Rio was the founding manager of Trouble Band and Show. He came by my house one day and asked me, did I want a gig plan with Trouble Band and Show? We did a show at this place called the Club of Burn at the in Palmer Park, Maryland. And the show was like from 8 till 11:30 or 11 o'clock, something like that, the cabaret. And after the cabaret, I noticed when I left out the building, there was a line going all the way up the side of the building. And I was like, what are all these people doing out here? It's like, the show is over. So I went back in and I talked to the owner of the club. He said, we're getting ready for the go-go. Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers is going to be playing from 12 to 6 in the morning.
Wow.
I was like, exactly, wow. 12 to 6 in the morning. I said, man, do you mind if I stay around and check it out? And he said, nah, not at all. And that was my first go-go experience. Now, keep in mind, this is back in 77. I was 17 years old. I'm 62 now. You do the math. So that was my first go-go experience. And keep in mind, back then, there was no such thing as go-go music. Go-go was just the atmosphere. Hey, man, where you going tonight? I'm going to the go-go to see Chuck Brown and the Soul Searchers. That word go-go was originated by Smokey Robinson. We took that terminology and gave it a totally different, meaning.
Yeah. Yep.
So first came the atmosphere, then came the beat, which was created by Chuck Brown. Chuck Brown came up with this beat that he could play in between top 40s because, and this is a conversation between Chuck and I, because we became very good friends later on as the years passed. We started off as rivalries. I get more into that in a minute. But Chuck Brown came up with that beat, and the reason why he came up with that beat was because, like, if you get the people on the floor, Chuck had this thing about knowing how to control the people. You know what I'm saying? As far as when he wants them to dance and when he don't want them to dance, and which was very smart. So he created this beat to play in between the top 40 songs because he said every time you stop, it takes a while to get them back on the floor again.
That's brilliant.
Yeah, it was very brilliant. You know, he's a brilliant guy. And the reason why he called it the go-go beat, he said, because it never stops. It just keeps going and going and going.
Go.
Yeah. You know, so then what happened was we wind up opening up for Chuck. And for about a good 3 months, people wouldn't dance. They just looked at us like we was from some foreign country. They was like, and we was playing really good top 40s. We was playing a lot of the stuff that Chuck Brown was playing. But the difference was we wasn't playing that beat in between. So one day at rehearsal, I'm actually leaving something out, you know. After everybody would go in the dressing room and they would point the finger as to why the people wouldn't dance and blaming it on each other, they would leave. I would stay there and I would sit on the side of the stage and I would try to figure out what is it that they're doing that we're not doing to make these people react the way they do. And one day I got it, a light bulb went off. It's like, it got a lot to do with how intimate Chuck was with those people. It was like he knew everybody in there. Mm-hmm. And he would talk to them like the conversation we're having now. You know, it's like, and he would call people names. And back then, if he called your name, that means you was popular, you was somebody. So I got to know some of the people. They didn't know me, but I got to know them. And I told Rio, I said, Rio, I think I know what it takes to make these people dance, but I'm going to need a microphone. So Rio's like, what the hell? We tried everything else. Let's try it your way and see what happens. And when Rio put that mic in my hand, the rest was history. And we came up with our first original groove. It was called Roll With It. That roll became very popular with all the bands. Right now to this day, the bands still play that roll. That yeah, that came from us.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
Wait, so let's flash forward a couple years, and it's the 80s, and go-go is a big deal, and it's, at least in D.C., everywhere. You can hear it on the street corners with bucket drums and so on. Mm-hmm. You guys are playing all over the place. There was a time when, you know, like the government and the respectable people and so on were saying, well, you know, this is vile and dangerous and so on, and kind of let's crack down on it. What was that like?
Well, it was a crazy thing, man. The media was really, you know, as Donald Trump would say, fake news, you know. Yeah. But it really was fake news. The media was like really, really hard. The media was blaming go-go for everything that happened. And it really had nothing to do with go-go. It's like these things was going to happen regardless. You know what I'm saying? As a matter of fact, I think go-go took such a bad rap back then. We should have gotten more credit for getting these kids off the street and giving them something to do and a place to go and just have fun.
Right. I mean, from what you say about your early life, it sounds like you didn't have any time to mess around because you were so busy learning instruments.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So, you know, again, I was just fortunate to find out at an early age in life that God gave me a special gift. You know, so that kind of kept me off the streets. Unfortunate for some, I have two little brothers I lost to the streets, you know. And I have so many friends that I've lost to the streets growing up. I'm just so grateful to this day that God gave me this gift to just share with the world and show me another way out.
Must be so weird now to watch the media and the government say, well, now, you know, go-go's our official music and y'all are the biggest heroes in D.C.
So we went from, okay, well, this happened at the go-go, that happened, somebody was shot and killed, you know, and then all this stuff would happen after the go-go. You know what I'm saying? After the go, we don't have no control over what happens after they leave. It was crazy. We was on tour in the UK, and I called back home, and they said that there was a shooting out after a show at the Washington Coliseum, and Trouble Funk was performing. We wasn't even in the country.
Why do you think it was so villainized? Like, why do you think it was so easy to pin these crimes and things on this go-go band, even if you weren't even in the country? Like, what do you think was going on there?
I can't be for sure, but I do know from experience, sometimes people fear what they don't understand. You know what I'm saying? And go-go was like it was one of those movements that, I mean, it's underground, but it was big. And it was spreading like a disease. You know what I'm saying? It's like we didn't have national distribution. So we created our own little label, GF Records, and we distribute music as far as we could take it. But somehow this music, I found out later, like people were taking these PA tapes over in the military, like boot camp and stuff, and they were taking that stuff like to college and, sharing this music and they were spreading, And like I said, it was just spreading. But again, there's a lot of money being made in go-go, and a lot of it wasn't being taxed. So it's like, if we can't get our share, then we need to shut it down.
Right.
One of those type of situations. And like I said, unfortunately, it was in the 80s, you had that crack epidemic going on, and I guess I should say some of the guys, the hustlers and stuff like that, they had favorite go-go bands. And so it became an easy target. It's like, oh, if you want to find out what so-and-so at, he's going to be at the go-go, checking out whoever, Red Essence, Trouble Funk, Chuck Brown. You can find them there, So if you had a beef and people knew that you liked that Trouble Funk or Red Essence was your favorite band, you can catch them at this show tonight, you know what I'm saying? And blah, blah, blah. We didn't know nothing about that. We was playing, we was the first go-go band in Georgetown at this place called the Paragon 2. And we told the owner, say, man, listen, can't let everybody in here. Trouble Funk has always had a certain national appeal that catered to different nationalities. You know what I'm saying? And that was the clientele that he had. All kinds of people was in there, I mean, you had people, doctors, lawyers, all kinds of important people that just wanted to go somewhere and let their hair down and enjoy themselves, But then it got really crazy and well, long story short, somebody wound up getting killed up in there. Yeah.
In Georgetown?
Yeah, in the place where he got shot outside, then he came in and died inside.
Wow.
Yeah. So, little things like that. But then the most recent incident, is when they actually tried to mute the music. That right there, I guess that was the final straw right there.
Yeah, I was going to ask, like, what do you make of the state of go-go in D.C. today? Like, what has the response been like? Do you think people respect it?
Oh, yeah, go-go is stronger than ever now. It's a lot of great things getting ready to happen with go-go. Trouble Funk in particular, because I'm going to tell you, in the words of Teddy Riley, it ain't over. The party ain't over. You know what I'm saying? The party ain't over. We're getting ready to drop a new single followed by a new album. We got a new album we're working on called Trouble Funk The Rebirth. And a single that we're going to drop called Southeast Crank, which is a tribute to all the groups that came up out of Southeast, Great tune. It's got a great storyline, and it talks about the history of how we started out, on the pots and pans, and we went from pots and pans to national stardom and everything. It's a really good story and a great groove.
Big Tony, before we go, remind us of the title of your book.
It's Big Tony. It's called Big Tony in the World of Trouble.
Will you invite us to your book party?
Absolutely.
Yes!
Absolutely.
I'll be there.
Absolutely. Yeah, we're going to do something real big for that right there.
Awesome.
Yeah, and we're also working on a documentary, a Trouble Funk because so many go-go documentaries has been done. And I mean, personally, I still don't think the true story has been told the way it needs to be told. So we're working on a Trouble Funk documentary to release.
Well, when you do, come back and talk to us about it, all right?
Absolutely. Looking forward to it.
Thank you, Tony.
Okay, thank you.
And before you go, here's some quick news. The DC Council's Housing Committee Chair Robert White is proposing a 6.9% rent increase cap on rent-controlled apartments. And it's actually a compromise between landlords and housing advocates. Council had approved a much bigger cap earlier this year, which infuriated tenant advocates. White did manage to secure money to help the city enforce the new cap, but he still needs to get the council to pass it before its summer break. Also, the Elliott School of International Affairs at GW University received a $900,000 anonymous donation to expand the Uyghur Studies Initiative that starts next fall. The money will go towards adding courses on Uyghur history and arts, expanding research, and adding an adjunct language professor. This is all at a time when Uyghur culture is under threat in China. Finally, on Tuesday, a DC police officer was found guilty of using illegal chokeholds in 2 separate incidents 5 days apart in 2018. And another DC officer has been arrested, this one for allegedly taking pictures of a woman in a bra and leggings without her consent while conducting a search. The officer pleaded not guilty and is currently suspended. And that is all for today here on CityCast DC. If you enjoyed the show, why not tell a friend, rate the show, leave us a review, and for heaven's sake, subscribe to our morning newsletter. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. Bye.
Chuck Brown to start off talking to me. All right. Yeah, I want to welcome everybody to the Club the Brown, blah, blah, blah. And then going to a little groove and, while Rick holding that beat. And I was like, man, that's so cool.
You're making me feel like I'm at a go-go show right now.
Yeah, it was a great experience.